So let's talk about the AGM. So once again, an AGM is a what?
Annual general meeting.
Okay, cool. That's what I thought, right? I was trying to look it up again today so that I'd sound smart, but that's all I could find, and I thought it was like advanced government something, you know. But yeah, so it's just the annual general meeting of this group, and this group is which?
United Conservative Party.
So this is the annual general meeting of the whole UCP.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm getting it together. You probably did all this with Matt.
A little interjection just to make distinguish the difference, though. It's a provincial AGM. So because there's a federal Conservative Party, which is like what Pierre Poilievre is being pushed as, or he is the leader of it. But this was a provincial AGM. So it's the Provincial United Conservative Party of Alberta, just to distinguish the difference.
The UCP is affiliated with the PPC, CPP, people. What are they?
You have the Conservative Party of Canada, which is
CPC.
Pierre Poilievre is the leader of that, and the UCP is essentially affiliated with them, but it's the provincial representation of the Conservative Party.
That's right. Okay, so I get it. Yeah, like how Ford is PC in Ontario, but so they're affiliated, but slightly different. Okay, so I didn't realize that. I thought UCP was whole newfangled thing, like Reform Party or something.
No, so we had an election, and there was the NDP running and the UCP running, and we won.
Yeah, yeah. Sighed a breath of relief then, but then Manitoba fell.
Yes.
Yeah, they're gonna have fun over there. Okay, so you guys sent me lots of footage, and I'll be able to cut that in, which will be nice.
This is one of those good problems for democracy.
So it looked like a hell of a bash. So Sebastian, you're first.
I'm first.
Highlights for you and what it was like and what you had to do.
About it for me are always the voting. So you're sitting in rows and rows and rows of plastic foldable chairs, and there are two presenters on stage who neither take a position on any given topic. They're just there to sort of usher the process along and make sure that everybody's sort of on a time schedule. And then in the case of policies, which was voted on Saturday, the two big screens on either side of our presenters will come up. It'll present what the policy is, what constituency brought it forward, and then there will be a yes and no debate. Each speaker gets about 30 seconds to speak. They usually take 2 from the no and then 2 from the yes, and then there is a right of rebuttal from the people from that constituency to speak on behalf of the policy that their constituency put forward. And then after that, they call a vote for the policy, and the policy has to have majority vote, which if they're confused on, they will call a count. But usually, and in the case of this particular AGM, most of them were pretty easily, like it was pretty easy to see visually from the presenter's stage that it was a majority vote. So we all have like these little hand cards that have yes on one side and they're colored green, and then no on the other side and they're colored red. And so once the presenters go, okay, we've heard 2 yeses, 2 noes, and right of rebuttal from the constituency, let's call the vote. All those in favor, like, you know, anywhere from like 2,000, 3,000 people go yes or no, and then they go all those against, and then the people raise their nose. And so that one's the most interactive part of this AGM, and that's why I find it to be the highlight for me.
And these are to decide platform?
They're to vote on whether or not the policies that get put forward actually pass and become part of the bylaws.
Right. So it can be anything from administration to public policy to this kind of thing? What's getting
Michael
voted
have
on?
an easier time
I'll toss
distinguishing
in a
those than I
little bit
will.
of context on it. So policy and governance, like a set of guidelines. So it's basically the way that the people get to communicate to the party, to the board. Then the board has a degree of separation to communicate to the caucus, which would be Danielle Smith and your MLAs. So policy governance gets kind of put forward, so it's like the rules and regulations on how the party should govern itself, and policies are what on average you'd like to see implemented on behalf of the people that support a policy. Put it forward, it gets voted on, so that way the legislation and the caucus, they see, right, because like several MLA members were obviously a part of the annual general meeting, as well as Danielle Smith, so it's to send the message. So it's not so much, it's like early stages of getting written up as like legislation, and also for the governance and policy handbook of the party, ironing out details, T's crossed, I's dotted. Amendments to much of the policies that got passed this year will probably happen next year. They'll like iron it out, if you will. So I just wanted to add that caveat because it's important to have that context.
Moving on, Noelle, your highlights from the AGM.
So, as a UCP member, if you're not at the AGM, you cannot vote on governances or policies. So you can be a part of a constituency association locally, and they come up with governances and policies, and then so many are brought forward, not all of them are brought forward. And then if you want to have your say, you actually have to attend to vote. Same with the board of the UCP. If you want your people that you believe will help Danielle Smith on the board, you have to be at the AGM to vote them in, or it doesn't count. So my highlight is if you participate, you have a say. If you don't, then you don't. So
I was watching all these details and just thinking about how much more involved I need to get. Right? And how much more involved the Canadians need to get in order to stop constantly being on your heels and complaining what's happened to this crazy world. Well, in a lot of ways what happened is we stopped participating.
I think too that a lot of people didn't know that they could participate. Like AGM tickets were really expensive and they seemed to be kind of out of reach. They weren't really advertised, and as people are kind of waking up to the fact that A, you can get involved, you can join your constituency association, you can join your school board. Danielle Smith lowered the price this year so that we could actually afford to attend.
Oh, nice.
A lot of constituency associations, sponsored youth to attend so that they could afford to come because it was out of their price range. So now that they're making it like where you can actually afford to attend, people are like, okay, we can get involved, we can have a say. And it's like, that's what everyone here in Alberta, we're trying to encourage you to do, is get involved, because like, no offense, you're not supposed to really bitch if you don't get involved.
But why do Canadians get raised not knowing any of this stuff? Mm-hmm. Why isn't this part of school? Instead, what are we learning about, right?
You're 100% right, Jay. It's a culture war. We're actually taught history that they want us to learn and not history for what it actually is, hence why we all like Matthew Ehret. And also, politically, they're okay if you show up and vote for whatever narrative they're pushing, but they don't want you to ask questions or get involved or change anything.
Would the process be too dry for a lot of people, do you think? Was the process uninteresting? Or was it fun? Or is there a way that you could get involved that wouldn't be totally bonkers boring for people?
It depends. I think that some people who have like a notion, maybe if they put in, they see it as important to them, then for them the whole experience will be fun. Mm-hmm. Like I know a lot of the freedom groups that we're part of, it's like a lot of them, it was their first time, their first AGM, and they enjoyed it, and because they got to learn like about how the voting process works, and they got to see the debates, and they themselves felt engaged. And there were so many people, because it was like the largest one yet, And there were even people in the crowd that, depending on the motion that was passed, someone would yell freedom, and the whole crowd would get going. Freedom! So you got 4,000 people that are just like so happy to be there, right? And so it's like, it can be really fun because you feel like you're a part of something that is bigger than yourself. You're a part of everyone in that room, you know what I mean? So in some respects it can be fun depending on your ethos, right? So the first thing tackling would be like, how do you like get people like to want to show up in the first place? Well, that's what the conversation and the negotiation is about right now. So
yeah, I imagine it's only going to be so interesting for so many, but if it's taught, you know, from birth to death that this is a responsibility that people should take on, either that or, you know, STFU.
Well, it's also a great way to network. Networking was a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, I'm not particularly socially extroverted, but I mean, even I ran into a couple of gentlemen who were literally in the same age bracket as myself, who kind of had similar lines of thought to what MayCee and Noelle just said, that they are just enjoying getting to meet people and also enjoying getting to make a difference, even if it sometimes feels like it's not much of one. They're happy to be there and stick it out on a Friday, Saturday night, even though, of course, we all probably could think of better things to be doing, right? So,
yeah. MayCee, did this thing, what's it like being there at around your age? It's a conservative party, so I'm expecting the median age there to be 57.
Well,
did it feel like that?
Yeah, there were gray hairs. I'd say the majority demographic, yes. But I was actually pleasantly surprised to see the amount of young people that showed up, because it was nice because some of the constituencies banded together so that way they could sponsor youth to go, because it does cost a pretty penny. But so there was a lot more. We did eventually actually get to engage with a 14-year-old who attended with her family, and that was really cool. And I was asking her how she felt about it, and she was like, it's interesting, right? And in some respects, though, as we had this thing called Next Gen, where a bunch of young speakers actually came up and talked about their experience about how they got involved in politics, why they got involved in the first place, what they think it means for the future, right? Thinking multi-generationally. It's like, it actually, we have a little Telegram channel that everybody was joining, so that way they could get a lowdown of what was happening during the events. And afterwards, just today, they asked the youth in that chat, like, what are some of the things that could have been better and improved upon? And a lot of them were like, they all said that it was a good experience in terms of the speakers. They all like really liked that. They were like, it's bigger picture, and I actually think that youth crave that for sure, more than people would think, because if we can be leaned towards like save the world syndrome, where it's like, I want to go protest and virtue signal about this and that and this and that, it's actually technically just taking that energy that we do have and putting it somewhere where it's actually a tangible thing. It's not just a protest, it's an actual, then go and do an actual thing. And I think a lot of the youth did enjoy that. I know for sure I definitely enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. And there was some feedback because there was some miscommunication on some of our freedom groups with the party itself on trying to make sure that the youth had their time together without I guess separate from adults, sure, because gray hairs, because they did want a bit more engagement on that level. But that's what I love, is the fact that we built a community where we're trying to talk about how we can improve on even the experience for youth like us, and that means something to everyone. And so I think overall, it's not just a static process of like, what does it look like when you attend? It's like, we're still trying to figure out how to make it better for the next time you attend. So if I was to say to a young person right now, they describe it to me in terms of like, why should I go? It's like, I'll be like, well, first of all, there's already improvements happening that I'm not even aware are going to happen yet, like, because I haven't seen it, because there's a group of people that are trying to work to make it better every time. But I would overall just say I love the networking experience. We literally had a gentleman that we met from the AGM come over to our house for like brunch, and we went on a walk with him, and like we now have a new friend, and it's awesome, and I love that. And so the connecting, that was so fun. And then of course I agree with Sebastian entirely on policy voting. That was so fun.
Right. Madison, how about you? Did you find the youth experience there fine? Did you find others your age? Do you feel like a baby there?
I don't know if I ever feel like a baby.
Well, I mean, you know, you're walking around and everybody's like 80.
I know I'm 5'4", but come on, no, it was a big improvement from last year at AGM. I think the one that was Edmonton, me and MayCee were actively looking for youth, and I think we counted like 3.
Wow. So that's good. Because, I mean, that's what we know we need to do, especially on this side of the political fence. We got to grab more younger eyes, because they're just immediately, automatically assumed to be completely assimilated. And I saw this when I had to go back at the end of the convoy to work in the kitchen for a year. I could see that, like, the younger people working, they wouldn't express themselves other than what was allowed, until I'd get them one-on-one, and then they'd feel okay to sometimes say what they really thought. So we need more people just getting used to being on this side at younger ages.
That's also something to think about, because I've heard that a couple times, even running over to the our youth group. I've heard, and in the feedback chat, people were talking about wanting to hear more youth speak, and then I heard somebody in our youth group said, you know, time for us to speak individually. And it might be because I grew up in a family of like 5 and 6. I'm used to, like, if you want something said, pipe up. So I'm used to that. So when people, you know, say, oh, the youth are kind of quiet and they don't get to say, I'm like, come on, like, what do I need to baby you? Let's go. But I understand that not a lot of people grew up with the communicative family that I did, so I can't project it onto them, which is why I made a suggestion for next year is like an introduction circle. I find every time that you're trying to get youth to work, and that's how my youth group works too, we literally pass the baton, so everybody gets a chance to say something. And even there's an Alberta community group that my dad goes to, they do the same thing. It's the round table. There's a reason it works. So everybody gets to say their piece and introduce themselves. So that's something to think about, because youth don't have that urge, probably because they don't know their values either too. You know, there's questioning of the identity, the values, the who, the what, the where, the why. So it's like they don't know how to communicate, let alone what to communicate.
Yeah, and without having to say it, it's just a whole list of things that are obviously like uncool to talk about and not kosher to. You can't even suggest that, say, like Donald Trump said something that made sense. You're instantly a Nazi, right? So I mean, it's tough on kids out there today.
We did go
for once. I'm glad I'm old.
Wow. we did go from 3 last year at the AGM to 300 youth.
Yeah, so you know something's happening.
And we did go from
great.
about 1,800 registered people at the AGM last year to 3,783, so almost double, and the biggest political gathering, right?
And it's there's a directed effort. That next gen thing, right? Is a directed effort.
1,380 was the attendance of last year's AGM.
Oh wow!
So we crushed it this year. Just for the facts of the matter, it was 1,380 last year, and this year was 3,780.
Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
well, wow.
And it was Danielle Smith who came up with Next Gen, and there was a vote to bring in a youth UCP board, which got voted down. But we're going to go for it again next year. She really wants a board of youth to join her team, and she's really excited about that part. So again, we're going to do it again next year, and we're going to hopefully, double that number again and get youth involved, because that's the whole point, is passing the torch.
This Danielle Smith, she seems like almost unreal. Is there a downside to her?
Well, we
Mike, that's a question for you.
Well, I mean, we don't. Do we want to go around voting people down? I mean, like she's doing her job, what she can do, and it's like she.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, like, is it? Everybody's a mixed bag usually, especially in politics. It just everything I hear about this woman is
We've
wonderful.
met her a couple times, and to be honest, meeting her in person, she just is totally regular person. And I think the biggest difference about her is she listens. And she's in touch with the local constituency associations. She actually joins their meetings, whereas Jason Kenney never joined their meetings. She actually joins the meetings and listens to what they have to say. And if she's a good listener and takes the different groups seriously, she's implementing what the people want, and that's her job. And I think she knows that. That's her job.
Mm-hmm. Did I hear correctly that the meeting started with the land acknowledgements and the new national anthem?
Yes, that is correct.
That's a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
That's everywhere.
That's
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't hold it exclusively against them, but I kind of think Smith wouldn't be totally down with that. But whatever.
I'm
I guess.
hoping that we come up with an Alberta national anthem rather than.
Yeah.
Because I have mixed feelings standing up from the Canadian one, just because I know the Canadian history from Matt. But if we had an Alberta anthem, I might feel a bit more inclined.
Yeah, I hear you.
Danielle Smith's just one voice, right? Like she's not a dictator. Even she's bound by federal rules and regulations to a degree, and even so you got to bear this in mind, right?
It's her party's event.
thing,
It's
right?
not her event. Yeah, understood. Yeah, I'm using kind of shorthand, I guess, when I'm saying Smith, but I think that UCP might just skip that part, but hey, one thing at a time, right?
Right.
So let's keep the wheel moving on. Kyle, highlights for you, thoughts on the AGM?
Yeah, I mean, like on the topic of Smith just being one person, it's like what I liked about the AGM is meeting people, because I don't care that much about the UCP. It's like no one organization, no one elected official is going to save us, right? So what mattered to me being there was we volunteered, which was good. We helped set up and tear down, which it's good to get experience in that realm and to help out with the events that it all happens in the first place. But then on top of that, all the networking like Sebastian was talking about, and we met some friends and some good people, good conversations. So yeah, like networking with all those individuals and talking about values and ideas and finding people who are like-minded and who disagree with you, and just navigating through that field. That was definitely my favorite part.
Yeah, I mean, I was in Ottawa, so I really want to get something like this going, or find out where this. I want to find out what's happening up here with Conservative Party, PPC. Do they have AGMs in Yukon? Do they bother? So Yukon's a strange place. It's so small. So I mean, I'm not sure. I did a little bit of looking around and couldn't quite figure it out, but I'll find out. Oh yeah, this is happening. I mean, I'm not just gonna say I need to get more involved. I mean, in Ottawa. I was this close. Just had some personal reasons to stop me from running for PPC, because they did the last election 3 weeks beforehand. They still had no candidate, and I was like, God, all right, I'll do it. But then, personal reasons, I didn't. And I've got similar thoughts up here. We personally know the guy that ran up here the first time. They didn't field one for the second election, so I'm not sure what's going on. I'm thinking about it, but it's a heck of a step to actually run for office. But it's no ask at all to start doing this, to start attending the events and especially that's what appeals to me, the networking. Especially since I just moved here as well, right? I mean, I've really got to get to know the Yukon. I've got to get to know the people and to find the cool people. Yukon's like everywhere else. Whitehorse is like a hippy-dippy town. The whole place gets sprayed with rainbows all summer and all that stuff. It's liberal MLA up here. Shockingly, because we're well out of Whitehorse. Everybody here is just like stupid lockdown, stupid COVID, freedom, whatever. Everybody up here is just rural people. It's just kind of what you expect, right? But then the whole territory is liberal in governance and in outlook and in policy. So definitely got to find the cool people here. So yeah, I'll go find out. If you guys ever hear about where the organizations are here or the AGM, if we have one, pass it along.
I mean, you could always start with the even smaller stuff. Like, for example, here we have constituencies, which are just little zones separated out throughout whatever city or area you're in, and then they have their own board. You can get on said board, and then, you know, you can start discussing decisions from there, and it kind of hierarchically goes up from there. And so look at the parties present in your local area, and then start with a small board, and that'll lead you to whatever big events that the broader party has, right?
If there's groups in like the Yukon, because I know that how we heard of the AGM and constituencies in the first place was by going to this meeting that was Taking Back Alberta, and they were hosting an event. Oh, Dad, you're saying it was APP that was hosting that? You sure?
No, I meant our first involvement of even getting into, like, APP led us to TBOF, TBOF led us to TBA, TBA led us to UCP, UCP is now our participation. So that's all I'll say, is like, you're right. Getting involved with a group in APP was an education group, right? Because we started at the Ranchman's event, and then things snowballed from there. That's all I was getting at. As a family, that's kind of where things had started for our political involvement, and the circumstances of the whole COVID experience brought us to that place. So it was just that APP was one of the first steps forward, if you will, into that broader community that we now find ourselves a part of.
Well, yeah, because we even have people in the freedom community that we've talked to, and they didn't even know what an AGM was. But so it's like, but to be fair, some of these people still don't attend some of the mini gatherings that we do have. So it's like, if you showed up more to those gatherings, you get the information to help out. So it really just is about showing up, really.
Yeah, I think we're talking about highlights, and I'm going to jump in and share mine. Mine didn't actually appear to me as clear as it did till the very end when we were done the wrap up. I mean, so there was a lady who was helping us plan the next gen thing, and she asked me while we were cleaning up, was it worth it, the whole event? And I was like, oh, duh, of course, but I couldn't explain as to why. And it didn't hit me until afterwards, when we were on the way out the door to the C train, and one of the older gentlemen who's in some of the groups my dad attends for Alberta, he said, "This is my first AGM." And he is an older fella, and he said, "I talked to a 17-year-old, and it was his first AGM. I am so excited about how ahead you guys are." And he's not one of those individuals that's super sappy, but his eyes were glossy. And so that's what made the whole thing worth it, and why it was worth it is because it brought so much hope for the community. I mean, I have that kind of regularly because I haven't been blackpilled. I haven't been lied to my whole life. I'm only 20. Some of these people have been in the PSYOP or have been fighting for so long that they were demoralized, and this brought it out for them. So that's really what made the whole thing, like, that's my highlight, was that interaction.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, the fighting the black pills, that's something. There's a lot of us, especially my age and up, that are pretty on the edge. You know, Rain on the channel, I don't know, every other month or so, he's like, I'm gonna unplug. I'm unplugging everything. And, you know, very often thinks there isn't any point to continuing the discussions and stuff like that. And I get it. I feel that dark sometimes, but that's why in our intro, it's like, he's black pilled and I'm gray pilled, because I'm like, I'm gonna unplug. No, we're gonna do the show, and we're gonna get the Holmes on, and we're gonna get Mobilize Canada, and we're gonna take it back. And then I'm like, no, what's the point? You know, you see something and you're just like, this new Snow White movie coming out, and you're just like, no. But then you see Shapiro making the counter Snow White movie, and you're like, yeah, okay, right, fight back.
I think I'm like Rain, because my neuroticism when I'm black pilled, it's like, was half of my life a waste? Like, I'll feel that way, right? Because I'm blown away at what I don't know, and I'm blown away at what I believed. But at the same point in time, what COVID and being red pilled has taught me is meeting people like you, Rain, Matthew. We're all in this together. We wouldn't have met without COVID, and we're in it for the long haul now. Like, we can't quit because we have each other.
Yeah. So sufficiently in the gray. I'm not going black.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, that can all be done at the push of a button. And if the S hits the F, then we all know kind of what to do, right? So until we're there, we're not there. So there's this, just fight to get back to a peaceful life. All right, we'll move on to the end of the circle. Mike, your highlights and thoughts.
I think to put some context for your audience, like if I'm going to look at what is our action, what is it even by having this interview are we attempting to do? And I think that what it really comes down to is regular folk. This truly, right? Like that's what the trucker movement was. Regular folk going, we got to do something, right? We used to joke on the drilling rigs, like do something, even if it's wrong, but do effing something. So this is what it is. It's like, what are the Holmeses? We're nothing. And yet people are looking going, but this is like a high functioning family and they're trying to get involved and see if what difference could be made. And there's like the quantity of individuals that I have met in this process that have faced exactly the same sobering dynamics that yourself and Rain and my wife and many others that have faced, and the gentleman that my daughter spoke of. It's like, we're people. We're people that thought we knew the lay of the land that we were in, and we were gravely mistaken. And then there are those that did have an awareness of the tumultuosity of government and the Matthew Ehret's context.
New Orleans International Assassination Network killed JFK. Deep dive agents, grassy knoll team, Mexican-based assassination training area camp, masquerading as Christian missionary schools.
That we're like, we have an oligarchical system and it's raining down on us, and we have been lied to and misappropriated and held back. And so this awakening, I think that the highlight that I'd like to offer is that I remember when this all started, and I was not a member of a constituency association. I did not know about the Alberta Prosperity Project. I did not know about taking back our freedoms. I did not know about taking back Alberta. I did not know. Like, I can keep saying I didn't know. I didn't know about an AGM, and I didn't know how many constituencies were in Alberta. And I didn't know my MLA, and I didn't know my neighboring constituency association, that there was one and that there was an MLA there. It's like, so I know that I am at fault for a great deal as to why I contributed to this problem. But now that was then, and here we are. It's 3 years of incremental progress, sobering punches to the face and the soul. There's been tears, there's been sleepless nights, there's tragedy, there's other topics that aren't political that we could discuss at another time for another chapter of the program, which should still be discussed. There are elephants in the room. But I'm going to take the little victories that this show is giving an opportunity for, and if there's anybody out there that's listening to it that feels like, what am I, who am I, what can I do? It's like, well, the answer is a little something, because you're looking at a family that figured out a little something, and it isn't miracles, and yet we just lived history. Like, we were just at a provincial AGM for the UCP that had 3,780 members. And as far as I can see through any type of research that's been done, we just made Canadian history, and these 6 people were a part of that. So, yeah, like, that's the highlight. The highlight is that we just we just lived a historical moment that Matthew Ehret would use as a segue to talk about a statistic to help edify individuals about doing something. So we're not just a conversation piece. We just lived it. Like, it just finished, and we're already getting our sights set for next year. And we've got mayor elections and civic elections coming up, and we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and get ready to get involved with that. And we got school boards that need to be infiltrated, and and I say infiltrated, but really it just means participated in. It feels like an infiltration, because it's an establishment that we are trying to be the water to permeate the rock. And so, yeah, we can do it. We can do this. Like, Rain can do this. Jay, you can do this. And so can everybody else. It starts, like, I didn't know anything. I sat in the Constituency Association and it was like, I knew nothing. But I know a lot more right now than I did when I first joined it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm having a political conversation, being able to discuss the ins and outs of these things. I couldn't do that. You want to talk about drilling rigs, philosophy, hard times, hardships, shadow, Ian McGilchrist and hemispheric proclivity of thinking? You betcha. I'm your Huckleberry. I can talk about a great many of things. Politics? Not so much, but now, yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So, what, as a kind of closing thought, continuing down your path of this is great, but what are we trying to get people to do? So what do people have to do? So let me put up on screen here results of my search. So these are the Yukon constituencies. Where do I go from there? I go and search these things, or?
Oh, first of all, see if you can't figure out which one you are, right? Because they're based on, like, for example,
where you live.
Districts, right? You're in a district.
Districts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now our constituency is going to have their own thing by definition at all of these, or are they going to be kind of grouped together, or?
Each one's going to have its own board.
In Calgary, ours goes by communities. So wherever you live, and then the community that you're in.
Okay, I'll be able to figure that out in seconds.
And then
when I know where that is, then let's say if I'm...
Just pick one that's not you.
Yeah, say if I'm Whitehorse. So I'd be able to find out which one I am.
Yep.
So what do I do then?
So
they have contact information. You can contact them once if they have a board.
Okay. Map.
So if it works anything like it works for us, the boards have to meet once every so often, and the public is free to attend and see what they're talking about.
Until they get on the board, then they can participate.
I'll let Mike answer this, but I believe that's how he started, is he just went and he sat and he listened, right? And in order to find that out, he obviously would have either had to have talked to someone or do exactly what you're doing, which is find out how to contact somebody so that you can start to bridge that gap and cross that bridge.
So that should be me, actually. So it's even got a Wikipedia entry. Interesting. All right, so I'll hunt that down and figure it out.
Yeah. It was that simple. I just sat. I mean, the way it worked here was I had to be a card-carrying member of the UCP. That was $10 for the year. And then I just showed up to listen. They told me that I couldn't vote, or I wouldn't be put on the minutes, because if you do have something to offer, they'll ask you. But what ended up happening is it was fortunate for me, right? I was just showing up to listen, to find out what was going on and start my education. And then as we had an outgoing MLA, and so they had to put together what was called an LC, and I think it was there's a nomination committee for the next MLA, and they required sort of a non-board member, but that was a resident of the neighborhood, like what you just looked up. So they asked me if I was willing to participate, and the answer was yes. And so it was like that opportunity presented itself, and I helped. But it could have been anything. Like they could have had something where they were doing a fundraiser and they wanted someone to help or set up chairs or mop a floor. Like that was literally what we did. Like when the LCNC was going, there was events. We held we put on a debate for the members that were challenging for the seat, and my family helped. We volunteered, we went to it. Not everybody could go that night, but some of us attended, and we had to participate in helping rent a hall and allow everybody to have their debate, and then we got to be a part of that, and then that led to, then we also helped and participated when the election happened, and so we sat as registers, and when the people came up and gave their ID, we swiped their name on the sheet, crossed it off, handed them their ballot, and then they went and told them where to vote. It was just service. Everything was pure service. There's volunteer. You're not getting paid. It's not glorious, but it's not about that. It's about participating in your community, because one of the things that then happens is that I'm getting to know my board members. I'm getting to know my neighborhood, their wives, their kids. If they participate, you end up having a coffee together. I got to go out and have a beer with the president of my constituency association, to chat, and then they watched me serve. I rolled up my sleeves, pulled the rigger mentality. There's 2 cans in the oil patch. If you can't do it, you can't stay. So it's like, just did this thing, and then all of a sudden it was like, well, would you like to be on the board? And then they had a meeting, and then they voted, and it was unanimous, and then that was it. I got to sit on the board and then participate. So then your ideas get recorded, and you get to listen in and help get involved in the organization. But it's like one thing just led to another. All that matters is some enthusiasm, some willingness to donate some time. And I understand busy, and I understand pressures. I'm a regular Canadian like anybody else. My whole family, we sweat things like everybody else sweats things. At some point there's going to be an economic crisis, and the bank is going to steal my house right from under me. It's like we're well aware of the landscape that we're in, but I refuse to let that stop us from participating, because if we're going to go down as a community, then we're going down as a community. But what I do know is that the more of us that are together as a community, it's going to be awfully hard to take us down. Yeah. So that's how. So
this is maybe the most dangerous voice out there, is saying, don't just take it, participate, fight back.
Yeah.
So a good first step is your political parties. So there may very well be NDP constituencies out there, but because they don't really align to our values, we kind of went and searched up UCP constituency associations, right? So get specific on maybe what political party you're going to try and target. We went for the one that had more conservative values, right? And it's not because we're for the UCP, but it's mainly just because it felt like the most likely one where we could actually get close to grassroots values. And as we got involved, we later will come to value and really appreciate the UCP, because we are changing it to how it was originally intended to be in the first place. So figure out maybe what your political one is first, then search up the constituency associations associated with that, and then go from there. They might have a website in terms of a little map of where you live, so that way you can determine your actual constituency, and then you just go from there. If you can try and get emails or anything with the number, call it, just anything that you can do to get into the actual building to partake in the conversation.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So that's good, because I'm also thinking we're like double fringe, because Yukon's so small, and this is definitely a PPC household, but we also know that that's currently it might stand for Pipe Dream Party of Canada. And that they might not even run anyone, so therefore we're going to have to get involved more with the Conservative
in
party.
our local
We'd have
area.
to see.
In our local area, Jay, we don't have a PPC party right now running. We did at one point, so we 2 were PPC, but we don't have one in our doing anything, so we had to go with UCP.
Yeah. So we might be facing the same thing. Yeah.
Bear something in mind here, Jay. PPC is a federal party. It is not a provincial party.
Yeah, right.
That's why.
I'm getting mixed up there.
There's 2. So I would definitely
I keep getting that mixed up.
Yeah, jump into your backyard. I would never want to discourage anyone from doing their convictions, but federally speaking, is trying to negotiate with Ottawa in the West. There's no point.
Yeah.
So I'm more of the
Understood.
mindset is see what you can figure out in your backyard, because that's where the metal meets the meat, if you catch what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I was looking it up, and Yukon does have their own legislative assembly, and they have their MLAs, so you can find your local MLA, and you can even contact them, because the MLA is going to have a board. So if you find your area, you can contact your MLA and be like, when does your board meet, or blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's a good idea, because it's easy to find your local MLA, and then after that, they should have all the information.
Yeah.
all their contact information should be public.
I just found it on Wikipedia, Yukon Legislative Assembly.
All right.
Yeah.
See the and I don't think I'll end up being alone there. We're so not taught about this stuff that I'm just regularly conflating federal and local, right? So I mean, the ignorance barrier to getting involved is massive, even for people who think they're kind of smart. Once you try to step into it, this is a whole new world that should be, like I said, it should be like should be kids' books about this stuff. Yeah. Man, we got to change education. Teach banking. Taxes. Yeah, teach about taxes. You know, this stuff should be early.
Right, history.
Yeah. Well, history. That's the whole thing, right? They should that Ministry of Education, Matthew Ehret.
First name.
Yeah, and
he should become part of the curriculum. Like we got to make him part of the curriculum. If we're going to make any changes, that's a change.
Yeah.
I want my kids growing up learning Matthew Ehret.
Exactly.
Rockefeller Foundation, CNN, Fox News, CNN, international media, mainstream media, Pentagon, not made by humans, the Congress, whistleblower testimonies, no evidence fervor in the zeitgeist.
Okay, guys, so I think that'll do it from here. For promo purposes, I'm going to do a 3, 2, 1, and we're all going to yell, "Let's spread it." You ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1. Let's spread it.
These films take time to make. Support our efforts by joining us at locals.com.